Hi folks, Shaz here, back with some card making. And what I've made this week, and it's the card I'm going to do in a while, are these 3 Christmas cards using some old memory box dies and a technique that I picked up from Jennifer MacGuire. Now the dies I used are a hanging ornaments die, and for the infill of the dies, the traditional ornament and the classic ornament. I don't know that these are still available. I think they are. I've certainly seen the hanging ornaments available, but they may be about in places, or you may have similar dies that you can do something similar with. Now, to start with, we'll go on to the Jennifer MacGuire technique that I picked up, which is a great way of using up your excess card offcuts. And all you do, as you can see from the packets on my desk, is to cut up loads of strips of cardstock. Now how you do this is entirely up to you. You can use all the same colour on something. You can do rainbow colours, which is something that Jennifer does a lot because she likes rainbow colours. You can cut all of your strips the same width, or you can vary them, which is how I tend to go. But it's really quite simple. You take some cardstock and you cover it with a double-sided adhesive sheet. There's lots of brands of that about, and I've got 2 or 3 different brands, but the Stick It one, while it may be a little bit more expensive than the others, is really good because that one you have to burnish down what you've stuck on top of it before it actually sticks. So if you get something in the wrong place and you haven't yet burnished it down, then it's easy to just peel it back up and stick it again. But as I say, you can use whatever you've got. You could even use strips of a wide double-sided tape across your cardstock. And I will say here, and I didn't do it, so it's a lesson learned, if you want to die cut from this, I'd really recommend using either an extremely thin cardstock or even paper. You could use paper as your backing piece, because the die cuts, the strips that you die cut out with the cardstock on, the cardstock strips are going to give it that extra support. So you're still going to end up with something that's reasonably rigid, but it will be easy to die cut through. It's not easy to die cut through effectively 2 layers of card and a layer of double-sided adhesive. And if it's an intricate die, then you're really going to struggle. But I found the best way to do this is to peel your backing sheet part way across and start working from the middle. And again, Jennifer said it's much easier if you work in diagonals, and I can vouch for that because I did try it with doing it straight, and that's really difficult to keep going, especially if any of your pieces are not perfectly square cut. And all you do is just keep butting the next one up against your first one, sticking it down. Like I say, you can use the same colour, you can use various colours, you can do an alternate pattern. I use some strips of glitter cardstock every now and again, just as a sort of accent piece on it. But you can use literally any cardstock or paper that you've got lots of offcuts to make these. And I'm not going to do the full sheet because you get the idea, and you really don't need to see me sticking down lots of cardstock. but you just continue that all the way to the end on that side. Then I flip it round and continue all to the way on that side. That I found is the easiest way to do it, rather than trying to start at a corner. So I'm going to put that to one side, and I'm going to show you what I have been making. Those are the ones I've cut from, so I'll move those. But I've got blues and silvers, purples and blues, yellows, browns and oranges, some browns, pinks, black, white and greys, a green, some reds. And these ones I've actually done with pearlescent paper. And again, you can do it with paper without any difficulty, but I would say don't mix cardstock and paper on the same sheet, because you won't get a very smooth finish if you do that. So I say, what I've done, I've cut out the hanging ornaments, which is obviously the basis of the card. And I'm doing some things here now that I didn't do the first time round, because I've discovered this is going to be an easier way to do this. First off, leave your die cut in the piece that you've cut it from, because that's going to hold it much more rigid while you attach the baubles. I didn't do that, and even though they're on cardstock, even though these are cut from cardstock, they are really flimsy, and you therefore end up really struggling to keep the shape right. And I'm just trying to make sure I've actually got all the backing off these, which I have. I can feel it. You especially obviously want to get any little bits of the die cut out, and I've got one there that doesn't want to come out. So, having peeled off the backing, it's then going to be much easier to place your bauble without it all going out of shape, which was something I struggled with on the ones that I did. So you just attach your backing onto the bauble, and that was much easier than doing it while they were free of the backing piece. Now just to remove those, you can get rid of your backing piece. Again, poke out any bits that you don't want. As you can see, I've still got a little overhang, which I think is probably more to do with how well it die cuts. Maybe the inner is slightly larger, but you can just take a small pair of scissors and trim that round to give you a better looking fit, like so. Then for the card base, now I've got some white pearl card that I've previously run through an embossing folder, and I'm just going to cut down a panel to fit on the front of my card. And find my pencil, just mark it on the back. Cut that down. Make sure that will fit there nicely. And the other thing I'm going to do is attach some fun foam to the back. And I'm using up some scrap pieces of that as well. And I'm going to just trim those down. Now this one's got some, has got a self-adhesive backing, but I don't actually find it's as strong as I'd really like it to be. So I will add some tape runner to it. So I'm going to grab my tape runner gun and I'm just going to put that on the back of the cardstock. I never actually thought I'd get on with one of these guns, but I have to say they're absolutely brilliant. So adding that to the back of the card. Like so. Then for the bauble. I did add some double-sided adhesive sheet to the actual die cut to make it easier to do that attaching. So I'm now just going to add some ordinary glue to the baubles and attach those to the card base like so. It's going to work better with a little bit of weight on top of it, just to hold them down for a moment. And while that's doing that, I'm going to put that to one side and stamp the, I'm actually going to get rid of all these pieces of cardstock that I've cut out of the way. And I bagged them up, by the way. I used the card bags for bookmarks. I just sort of bagged them up into colour, which makes it easier to work with. And what I'm going to do is stamp what's going to be the greeting on it using my travel platform. I've got the larger one, and this one was bought for me as a Christmas present. And if you're umming and ahhing as to which size you want, I will say that, as you can see from the rulers, this has a 6.5 inch sized base to stamp within, and the lid will hold and stamp a 6-inch square stamp. And as I don't tend to have many stamps that are much bigger than that, I think if this one wasn't available when I first bought mine, but this would have been fine on its own. I really wouldn't have needed the bigger one. So if you're undecided as to which size you need, generally speaking, you can do absolutely anything you want with the 6-inch one. It's still got the same open side, so you can use any size of piece of cardstock in there, and it works just as well. Now I'm going to stamp this with Versamark. Find my silver embossing powder, and the only reason I'm using the platform for a small greeting like this is that the cardstock is slightly textured, and so it guarantees getting a good print. Using my Versamark Dazzle pad. I don't know whether any of you remember these coming out. They did them in frost and champagne. I'll be perfectly honest, it's one of those things that was completely unnecessary. To me, it does nothing any different to what the normal Versamark does. But so I just use it the same as I would normal Versamark. I think it possibly gives you a slight colouring or sparkling if you use it for the watermark properties, but like I say, I've not really found a huge difference in it. So we have that stamped and embossed. The embossing powder is Stampendous Detail Silver. But there are quite a few detail powders about now, and I'm just going to heat set this. I'm just leaning to one side, and then remembered, since I've got the Tim Holtz glass mat, I don't actually need to avoid the heat going onto my craft mat anymore, which is the big bonus with having those. The downside is it's slightly more slippery than the green craft mats, but it's a lot more user friendly. So I'm going to trim that down, ready for matting onto my card. We've now got our sentiment. I'm going to use some, I'm going to use that scrap of silver there to attach it with as a small mat. And again, trim it down. This is all definitely waste not liner. This this mini guillotine is exactly the same as the Tim Holtz tonic one that's available now, just the colours are different. But I've had this for ages and it works like a charm. Really very, very good. I don't get any problems with it. Okay, we should have that stuck down enough now. Now I'm going to again add some tape to the back. And pop that onto my card front, and for that I'm just going to use some foam tape. If you're in the UK, I buy that from Poundland, and it comes in a pack with 2 rolls of that and about 10 sheets of foam squares. Add that to the side, and that's really good value. Now, when you've done your die cutting, you have these little circles. You can keep those, which, as you can see, I kept the gold and the silver on those, but I thought it might look nice if I actually die cut them from the same material as the baubles. So I'm just going to pop those in there. Wrong one. On that one. Now Now this one I've just realised I've made a bit of mistake. I should have trimmed off that part of the bauble and I forgot, but it's okay, it's stuck down. Pop those into place. The lid on my glue bottle. And there we have the baubles. I've also added onto these, I've used some little coloured gemstones to decorate the snowflakes on the baubles with, and I'll probably do the same with that one. But I wanted to show you some other things that I've done with those strips. This one I just cut a strip. I used a couple of strips of the gold paper at the side, die cut the sentiment once from glitter paper and a couple of times from just plain black card and stacked them up. For this one I used Tim Holtz's Umbrella Man. I cut away the umbrella and I die cut some a balloon set that I had, and the bottom sheet there. Again, simple birthday card with stars, die cut from that. This time I used the Umbrella Man, but I cut the man himself from the striped card, and the balloons I paper pieced using an assortment of golds and brown cards. Same thing again, the balloons die cut from the striped card and a base. The pink, now this is the one where I tried, you can see it's gone off a little bit at that end. This is where I tried doing it vertically, and it really is much harder. The slope is very much more forgiving. Again, die cut from stripes, as is that one. This one I just used a stripe panel and added a happy birthday die cut to it, and another one again with the base and the balloons die cut from the pieces of striped card. So it's a really good way of getting a selection of cards together, and they're quick and they're easy. But like I say, if you definitely plan to die cut them, I really do recommend using the thinnest card you've got, or even paper. It's definitely going to make things way easier, especially if you wanted to die cut sentiments from them, because otherwise you're going to find yourself having to do a lot of fussy cutting or a lot of trimming down to actually get them to look nice. So that's my cards for today, and I'll be back with you soon. Thank you very much for coming and having a look, and if there's anything you'd like to see me do or have a go at in future videos, please leave me a comment and I'll try and get round to making a video for you. Okay, thanks guys.